From Los Angeles, the Carter Report presents Amazing Discoveries Worldwide Lectures with John Carter. During these fact-filled presentations that have astounded millions around the world, you'll see the wonders of ancient Egypt and meet Hatshepsut, the bearded queen. You'll visit Petra, the fabled city carved out of a red mountain, Jerusalem, the fated city destroyed by the hordes of Rome, Karnak, the breathtaking temple of gods, demons, and pharaohs, and Babylon, city of God King Nebuchadnezzar. You'll hear the voice of prophecy as it echoes and thunders down the corridor of time, and discover the identity of the real Antichrist. All this and much, much more. Prepare now for a life-changing experience with John Carter as he presents Amazing Discoveries Worldwide Lectures.
During tough times, we are confronted by three big questions. We're going to answer these questions starting tonight, but every night during the series. You'll need to come. Here they are. Where did I come from? Because if I came on the planet by blind chance, you listening to me? If I came on the planet by blind chance, if I am the product, listen to this one, of time plus matter plus chance, if I am simply a cosmic accident, then I'm going to exit by chance also. So, where did I come from? That's the first big question. The second big question is this: why am I here? What's the purpose of living? That's what we're going to talk about in these lectures. What's the purpose of living? You say to people, why do you work so hard? They say, to make money. Why do you make money? Well, so we can get our kids a good education. Why do you want them to get a good education? So they can go to a great university. Why do you want them to go to a great university? Well, so they can make money. And why do you want them to make money? Well, so they can get married and have a family. And what's the purpose? What's the end result of this great drama? They say, well, so they can send their kids to a good university. Why? So they can make money. Why are we here? Are we cosmic accidents? And another big question is this, ladies and gentlemen: where am I going? Where is the planet headed? What is your future? What is the future for your children? Now listen carefully. I'm talking now as a person who knows a little bit about archaeology. I've got a very old book here. This old book was born in the land, not of America, no, not in Europe, but it was born in Egypt. It says it's got the answers to the three big questions: where I came from, why I'm here, where I'm going. And so tonight, what I'm going to do is this. Let me set it up so that you'll understand this. I'm going to take you to Egypt, which is the birthplace of this book that says it's got the answers. And I'm making a promise. I'm going to show you some astounding things. Egypt, did you know, is the longest lasting civilization on the face of the earth. Australia was discovered in 1770. That's just a few years ago. 1492, what does it say? 1492 what? Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And so this whole country should have been Hispanic. 1492, discovered by Columbus. And then in 1776, just a few years ago, they broke away from Great Britain in a great war of liberation. But I'm going to show you stuff tonight that goes back thousands and thousands of years before Christ. I was in a tomb. All of this is absolutely true. I was in a tomb recently at Saqqara, the tomb of the two brothers. It has only just been opened. I'm going to take you into that tomb. It shows you how they built the pyramids, incidentally. I said to the inspector of antiquities, how old is this tomb? He said, it's more than 4,000 years old. And the paint is still bright. The colors are still bright. We're going to take you to the oldest civilization that goes back at least 5,000 years. Egypt is the gift of the Nile, and the Nile is the gift of the gods. The ancient Egyptians said, I want to come over here and take a piece of chalk. I want to write up just a little map here. This is the land of Palestine up here, the Mediterranean coast. Then you come down here to what is called the Delta, and there you have the Nile River Valley. About 1,000 kilometers from north to south, that's about 600 miles, just a few miles across. You have the desert here, and you have the thick black soil of Abyssinia here, the best soil possibly in the world. These are the places we're going to take you to. Here are the pyramids on the Giza Plateau. We're going to talk about how the pyramids were built tonight. We're going to take you down to Karnak or Luxor. Karnak is the greatest temple in the world. The whole temple complex is about 1.5 miles on each side. It is the biggest worship center on the face of the earth. It was built for the worship of the gods. Over here, you have the Valley of the Kings on the western bank. You say when a person died, well, he went west. They believed that the dead lived in the west, so there you got the east, and you cross over the river, you come to the west. And then towards the end of the program, I'm going to take you up here to the land of Israel, where you have Sea of Galilee, Dead Sea. Down here, they've discovered what they think are the old cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. I've been there, I've seen the ash. I've seen the human bone in the ash. One night we're going to take you to Sodom and Gomorrah, but then later on we're going to take you to a site up here called Hatzor. And so these are some of the places I'm going to show to you tonight, and I believe you're going to start to get your questions answered. Let's talk, shall we, about the pharaohs. The pharaohs believed that the god Amun-Ra slept with the wife. And thus the offspring was not the offspring of a man, but the offspring of the gods. And so the Pharaoh was considered to be the living incarnation of Horus, the sun god. The wealth of ancient Egypt sort of blows the mind away. Listen to this. Pharaoh Osokkan gifted to the temple 383 tons of gold with a bit of silver during 4 years. When we take you into some of these tombs tonight, it sort of blows the mind. I had the privilege only very recently of hiring the whole of the Cairo Museum for an evening, and we took the HD cameras in there. You're speechless. The gold, the craftsmanship, what a race they were. And then when you see some of the buildings, I want you to notice on the screen, we'll show you some of this, a little bit more of this as we go along when I talk about King Tut. But the buildings, the size, the mass, we wonder today if we could do it. This is a part of the famous Karnak temple. Those great pillars that you see here on the screen are 75 feet high. And to walk around them is 35 feet or so. And on the top of those pillars, you have tremendous stones that weigh thousands of tons. We know how they did it. We would find it hard to do it today. Mass, splendor, and greatness. It sort of is amazing. Tonight, too, we're going to take you into one of the tombs. We're going to take you into the tomb of Tutmosis III, one of the first times this has ever happened, into the Valley of the Kings. This is a mortuary temple. This is the mortuary temple of the famous Queen Hatshepsut. Have you ever heard of her? I'm sure you have. Her mummy was lost for 3,500 years. Why is this so significant? I'll tell you why. She became a pharaoh. It was against the law for a woman to become the pharaoh, but she became the pharaoh. And her mummy has just been discovered. Now, this is true, what I'm telling you. We can substantiate all of this. This book that I've got here tonight, and after you've attended 10 of these lectures, we're going to give you this book. You can get an English copy, you can get a Spanish copy. They're both the same. But this book was not born here. It was born in the land of Egypt. The first 5 books of the Bible that we call the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, were written by a mighty, powerful prince, Egyptian prince, who could have been the Pharaoh. And we can tell you, if we have time, why he missed out on being the Pharaoh. And tonight, we're going to show you the woman who went down into the Nile and found this little papyrus basket and opened the basket and was startled by the cry of a little baby. And she picked up this little baby and she gave him an Egyptian name, Moses. Moses. And tonight we're going to show you a great bunch of famous kings, the greatest kings perhaps the world has ever seen. And they're all called Moses. We're going to show you the actual bodies, the fingers, probably the toenails, the hair, and the teeth of some of the greatest kings that are still influencing us today. It's an amazing story. Why am I doing this? Because this book claims to tell us where we came from and why we are here and where on earth is this world going. But the question is, can it be trusted, or is it simply a bunch of foolish fairy tales? Tonight, we want you to come with us on this exciting journey. And every night, tomorrow night, I'm going to talk about Rose Red Petra. I was there just recently. I just love Petra. I'm going back in a few months. The Rose Red City, some would say, of human sacrifice. The poet Burgon said, match you this wonder, save an eastern clime, a rose red city half as old as time. We're going to take you tomorrow night up to the high place where we believe human sacrifices were carried out. A city that was lost for 1,000 years because of a prophecy. That's tomorrow night, and you are to come. Now, let's talk about the writing of the ancient Egyptians, because they wrote in a strange type of writing. It was called the hieroglyphs, or the hieroglyphics, the sacred writing. Only a few people, even back in the days of the pharaohs, less than 1% could read it. But then for the last 2,000 years, the riddle of the ancient Egyptians was lost in this strange writing. And then in 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte marched his soldiers down into Egypt. And he said, as his soldiers paraded on the Giza Plateau, he said, men of France, 4,000 years look down upon you. They went up to the Delta, did some of his scholars, and up here in the Delta, you see it looks like a Greek D upside down. Up in the Delta, they were fossicking around the little town of Rosetta, and they discovered this trilingual inscription. I want you to see it again. It's written in 3 languages. Hieroglyphic, nobody could understand it. Demotic, nobody could understand it. But Greek, every scholar could understand it. And as they read the Greek, they discovered it was a decree in honor of Ptolemy Epiphanes in 196 BC. A young Englishman, a brainy young guy by the name of Thomas Young, tried to work it out and worked out some of it. It was incomprehensible. It seemed impossible to crack the code. And then a young Frenchman took over the job, and his name was Jean-Francois Champollion. And after many, many years, he came to the world and he said, we can now tell you what it means. We now know the message of the pharaohs. That message I share with you tonight because it is a message that concerns the fate of every man and woman in this auditorium tonight, believe me. The Egyptians used ideograms in their writing. They had hundreds and hundreds of different symbols. And sometimes when they wanted to make a symbol, they did it very simply. Something like that would represent a face. This symbol here, you can see it over there, that represented water because it looked like water. And later on, that symbol became the consonant N, because their word for water started with N. And then they also used something that was called the rebus principle. Let me talk about this. The rebus principle is when you try to express an abstract idea through something which is real, but there's no real connection between the two except an abstract idea. Let me illustrate how some of the hieroglyphics will work. Help me work this out. Now, everybody listen and everybody watch, because you're going to have in a moment an examination. Just see what I'm doing and see if you can work it out. This is just a little private example of hieroglyphics. Got it worked out? What is another name for a harp? Come on, speak up, please. Come on, louder. Yeah, lyre. Okay, that's giving you the first clue. What does this represent here? This is an abstract concept. If you weren't here this afternoon, what is that? It's a man? Put up your hands if you think it's a man. Come on, you don't go to jail in America because you get it wrong. Put up your hands if you think it's a man. Come on, put your hands up. You don't have to be too worried. This lady here is not too sure. Put up your hand, ma'am. Make a vote. Just take a plunge. Okay, you think it's a man? Well, it's not a man. It means nobody. Okay? Nobody. Now work it out with me. Nobody. What's this? You know? Nobody be. What are these things? Leaves. And what is this? Yeah. So say it with me now. Nobody believes a liar. Now that's called the rebus principle. It's a way of expressing abstract ideas. And then beside hundreds and hundreds of these abstract ideas and some of these ideograms, they also had an alphabet of 24 different letters. It was tremendously complex. But now we know what the pharaohs were telling us. We know the intrigue of those days. And the Bible, of course, talks about the ancient Egyptians. It talks about the pharaohs. It talks about the man who could have been king. His name was Moses. And now we can go and we can read the strange writings. There you see the word, the letter. You see it there? For water. All of these things now are as plain as day, and Egypt is starting to tell her secrets. Let me start with one of the great secrets, the great discovery. Hatshepsut was a mighty pharaoh. It was against the law for a woman to become the pharaoh. And so what she told the people was this, that the god had slept with her mother. Her mother's name was Amos. Her father's name was Thutmose the First. I want you to learn some of these names. What was his name? Thutmose. Some would call him Thutmoses the First. And his wife's name was Moses. But she told the people, and you can see it in the inscriptions where the god is standing in front of her mother and passing out to her the Ankh, which is the gift of life. And so she believed, at least she taught the people, that she was the living incarnation of the God himself, Horus. And she is shown in all the inscriptions You can see here, this is the symbol of life. This is the ankh. And there you can see the beard. And the beard is the symbol of the priest and also the symbol of the Pharaoh. Listen, listen. She was not just a queen. She became one of the greatest pharaohs in the history of the land of Egypt. She is shown wearing male garments and with the male beard. She said the god slept with her mother, and in spite of her greatness, her mummy was lost for 3,500 years until recently. When I was lecturing to the Russians and other people only very recently, I would say this to them: we believe that the body of Hatshepsut was destroyed by Thutmose III, whom she kept off the throne because she was going to put Moses, her adopted son, on the throne instead. And I would say to them, as many have said, Thutmose III got her and destroyed her body so that her soul would be lost. Now, Dr. Hawass is the greatest Egyptian archaeologist. Over 100 years ago, a mummy was found in just a plain wooden coffin with no name on it. The body had just been thrown in there without any ceremony. And the coffin was about 3,500 years old. So they took this broken down coffin with this poorly preserved body up to the Cairo Museum. And just very recently, they decided, where is Hatshepsut? And we're going to make a decision to see if we can find her. They found the nurse of Hatshepsut. It had her name written down. She was the nurse. And then they found this mummy that you see on the screen. They found also a box. There it is. And on the box, it had the name Hatshepsut. They would place some of her organs inside this box. But the box was completely empty. Just a name. And one thing in the box. One thing. A little thing. It was a tooth. They thought, maybe this is the tooth of Queen Hatshepsut. And so they got this mummy and they opened up the mummy's mouth. And there was a gap. There was a hole in the jaw. And they got the tooth and they pushed it up into the hole. And it fit perfectly. It was Hatshepsut. And then they did some DNA testing. They had the mummy of her mother, Ahmose, and they tested with the DNA, and the DNA matched up. Now I'm going to tell you something. I just want you folks to listen. You may say, this is almost too hard to believe. I'm not going to ask you to believe anything that I can't give you good evidence for. Who was she? Who was this woman? Who was Hatshepsut? Now, the Bible tells an interesting story. Most of you folks would be people who've been brought up to know something about the Bible. The Bible tells a story about a young man by the name of Joseph. He was sold by his brothers, and he went down into the land of Egypt. And when he got down into the land of Egypt, he was put in the household of a man by the name of Potiphar. And he was a handsome young guy, and Mrs. Potiphar took a liking to him, and she tried to seduce him, and Joseph said, no. And what happened? She got so mad that she told lies about him, and Joseph was thrown into prison. Now, the story goes on in the Bible that Joseph gets out of prison, and he actually becomes the prime minister of the land of Egypt. He became what they called in the Bible the Zathnath Paneer. He became like the vice president of the country. There came a tremendous famine in the land of Egypt, and people were dying. They were going to die, at least, unless Joseph did something about it. And so what he'd done, he'd got all the grain over 7 years, and he'd placed it in these storerooms. These are some of the storage rooms where they used to place the grain. You can see it over there next to the temple. And the years went by, and the descendants of the Israelites, because he was an Israelite, they grew and they grew and they grew down in the land of Egypt. Jacob came down, Israel came down, and they became a mighty nation within a nation. And the Bible says, there arose a king who knew not Joseph. And the children of Israel, hundreds of thousands of them, became slaves. I'm going to go to the blackboard, and I'm going to put up the names of the pharaohs. We know this is so from that period. The Bible in 1 Kings chapter 6 and verse 1 gives us a certain date, and it tells us how to work out these dates. I'm going to put up the names of the kings from this era, and I want you to notice carefully what their names are. There was a race that came in from Asia. They were Semites. They were not Egyptians. They were the Hyksos, rulers of foreign countries, and they took over the land of Egypt. But then the Egyptians got sick of this, and an Egyptian prince by the name of Seqenen-Ray started a great rebellion, and eventually these foreign kings were thrown out of the land of Egypt. Let me put up the names. The first of the kings that came after the Hyksos was called Seqenen-Ra. Ra, of course, meaning the sun god. Remember once again, here you've got these foreign kings. Joseph is the prime minister, but then there comes a tremendous change in circumstances. He was followed by his son by the name, and up on the screen you can actually see the pharaoh Seqenen-Ra. You notice how the head has been smashed and broken? This happened in the war with the Hyksos. After Seqenen-Ra, there came a man by the name of Karmos. Notice the word Mos or Moses. After Karmos came his son, and his name was Mos or Moses. And after Moses came Amenhotep the first. Amen or Amon is the name of one of the great gods. After Amenhotep the first came Tut or Thut Moses or Mose the first. He was the father of Hatshepsut. His son's name was Tutmoses or Tutmoses the second. Now, Tutmoses the first had a daughter, and her name is Hatshepsut. And we believe that she was the princess who went down to the river Nile and was startled to hear a baby crying. And she pulled the little baby out of the bulrushes, out of the papyrus basket, and she gave him a name, like her father's name, Moses. After Tutmoses II, you have Tutmoses or Tutmose the third. After Tutmoses III, you have Amenhotep the second. He is the son of Tutmoses III. After Amenhotep the second, you have Tutmose the third. After Tutmose the third, you have Amenhotep the third. And then you have Amenhotep the fourth, and he's got a change in his name. His name then became Akhenaten. That'll do. Akhenaten. And after this man, you have the famous pharaoh whose name is Tutankhamun. And then if you come down further, you come to Ramesses the Great. Now, listen to me. We can work out the chronologies, and we can get a pretty fair idea when Moses lived. If our estimation of the chronologies is correct, during the time of this king, there was a girl who went down to the banks of the River Nile. She saw this basket, this papyrus basket, and she adopted this little baby, and she made this little baby her son. He is the person who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. When she took him out of the papyrus basket, she said, I'm going to give him a name. And she gave him a name. She didn't call him Tutmos or Amos. She called him Moses. And this woman here that you can see on the screen, the remains of this woman, is the woman who went down and found the baby. Now, the story is even more exciting than this, because here you've got over here this guy by the name of Tutmosis III. Tutmosis II, who was her husband, had an affair with some lady beside his wife. And what happened was this: the baby was Tutmosis III. And so Hatshepsut said, when her husband died, I am going to be the Pharaoh. This man here, you can see on the screen, is Tutmosis III. Now, I'm going to give you a run through on the pharaohs. We've got the bodies of Amos and Tutmos and Ramesses, that's Ramos. But this gentleman up here on the screen tonight is Tutmosis III. And he is the Pharaoh that she kept off the throne. He was the legitimate Pharaoh, but she kept him off the throne. I wonder why she kept him off the throne. Because the Bible says she had an adopted baby. And his name was not Tutmos, but Moses. And this Moses was in line to become the Pharaoh himself. And here you can see on the screen, right here in the center, there he is. The Bible tells the story that Moses went and spoke to Pharaoh and said, Pharaoh, let my people go, because the children of Israel had become slaves. And the Pharaoh said, I will not let your people go. There he is tonight. Hasn't got a lot to say, has he? This is the greatest of the pharaohs, Tutmosis III. I'm going to show you some pictures now out of the tomb of Rekhmare. The tomb of Rekhmare, which is on the west side of the Nile. We're going to take you into this tomb. This tomb has only recently been opened. This tomb goes back to the days of these great pharaohs. And you go inside back to the time of the 18th dynasty, and I want you to notice what you can see on the screen here. Here you've got Egyptians oppressing Semites. Now, I've never shown these pictures before. I've never been able to get into the tomb of this nobleman. I couldn't get into the tomb. But I got into the tomb just recently, and we got all this on HD television. But there you can see the Egyptian standing here with a staff in his hand, and you can see these other people, how they look different. You notice they're not Egyptians. You can tell the Egyptians very plainly. Here's a man with a whip. But these other people who are doing the work are Semite slaves. Now, some people have doubted whether the Bible was right when it spoke about the children of Israel being slaves in the land of Egypt. Here, ladies and gentlemen, you have clear proof of Semites being oppressed by the Egyptians, exactly as the Bible says. And so they'd become a race of slaves. There was a little boy who grew up to be a prince. His mother was going to put him on the throne, but there was another Moses. His name was Tutmosis III, and he said, never, never, never will he have my throne. It is the drama that is recorded in the Bible thousands of years ago. Let me read you the story out of the book. This is Exodus chapter 2. That's the second book of the Pentateuch, Exodus chapter 2 and 1 and onwards. It says this: Now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the banks of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the river bank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, Hatshepsut, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. And the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to him, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Moses is an Egyptian word. It's like the Hebrew word that means to draw out or to be born. And so, down here on the banks of the River Nile, one of the greatest events in the history of the world took place when Hatshepsut found a little baby boy. And that little baby boy was going to be Pharaoh, and Tutmosis III, she kept off the throne year after year after year after year, and the hatred grew and grew and grew. Everything she did was great. We hear about Cleopatra, think she was great. Nothing compared with this woman, the foster mother of Moses. I want you to see on the screen some of the things she did. I want you to see her buildings. I've visited just about all of her buildings and her monuments, and when you look at this stuff, you've got to just stand back and you just got to take a deep breath because it's amazing. Over on the western bank of the Nile, on the other side of the river at Karnak, just before you get to the Valley of the Kings, is this magnificent building which is called Deir el-Badari. It is the mortuary temple of the great queen. I can take you through all the rooms. You can see the pictures of her there. You can see how the god approached her mother. You can see how she has the beard. You can see her there in those great statues. There she is as Osiris, the god of the underworld. But there she is with the beard. And then you go to the Karnak temple and you see stuff there that sort of blows you away. I want to take you to the great Karnak temple now, and we go into the very heart of the Karnak temple, and we see there the great obelisk of Queen Hatshepsut. You've got to see this thing to believe it as we go into the great Karnak temple, because the great obelisk itself is 97 feet high. It's made out of a solid block of granite. It weighs 323 tons. Once upon a time, it was covered with a mixture of gold and silver. 97 feet high, gold and silver. The foster mother of Moses. Body lost for 3,500 years. I met her only a few months ago. I looked down at her and I thought of the drama of those days. The story of the two Moses kings, Thutmose III. When he became the king, when he became the Pharaoh, he was far greater than Ramesses the Great. Probably the greatest Pharaoh in the history of Egypt. It's an amazing, wonderful story. The boat for carting the obelisks from Aswan, 309 feet long, a beam of 104 feet, the deck 31 feet above the water, the dead weight 2,500 tons, the displacement 7,300 tons, towed by 30 smaller ships with around 1,000 oarsmen. Amazing. And then she dies, and Thutmose had his opportunity. When you go and see the inscriptions of Hatshepsut, you'll see how most of them have been obliterated. I want you to notice this on the screen as we see the statues that have been defaced by Thutmose III. Look here. He sent his people around, up and down the Nile Valley, and he defaced the statues. Notice this here. They're just chopped away. I said to old Peter, my Coptic Christian friend, tell me, why did he do this? He said he hated her. I said, I wonder why he hated her. If you read the Bible, you know why he hated her. Apparently, his son, Amenhotep II, joined in this terrible business of wiping out her memory, her body thrown out unceremoniously like an unclean thing, and discovered only a few months ago. The foster mother of Moses. I am forced to believe the story of the Bible because all the pieces fit together. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to take you now to the tomb of Thutmose III. This is the first time I've ever had the privilege of going into that tomb with a television camera. You can't get inside the tomb. The Bible says, listen to this stuff, I know it's so much to take in. This is taking you now inside the tomb. I don't think you'll ever see stuff like this again. This is inside the tomb of Thutmose III. If our calculations are right, he was the Pharaoh who was drowned in the Red Sea. That is mentioned in the Bible. This is the sarcophagus of Thutmose III. I'm with Dr. Randy Younger from Andrews University, and we're looking at the sarcophagus of Thutmose III. But there's something even more amazing. I've shown you the mummy of Thutmose III, but it may be the wrong person. It appears as though the mummies might have been switched, because this is the mummy of a young man. It appears as though the mummies might have been switched. You know why they might have been switched? Because the Bible indicates that in the year 450 BC, most likely, which is the date that is taught in the Bible as to when the Exodus took place, it appears that this man was drowned in the waters of the Red Sea, or the Reed Sea. Come inside the tomb again. I want you to come inside the tomb again. The tomb has been finished in haste. It's not even finished properly. They've got stick-like figures. And on one of the walls, this is true, it's the truth. On one of the walls, it's got pictures of people, corpses floating in the water. Hundreds of soldiers floating in the water. in the tomb of Thutmose III. Now, this could be just a part of Egyptian mythology, but could it be more than coincidental that in the tomb of the Pharaoh who was drowned in the Red Sea, there are pictures of corpses floating in the water? When I looked into his face, I asked myself, and I asked him, are you the real guy? Or are you at the bottom of the Dead Sea? Did they just put you in this coffin? And did your son throw the body of Hatshepsut out so it took 3,500 years to find her? It is the story of the Bible, and only one book seems to bring it all together. It's an amazing, amazing story. Who were these Egyptians who gave us the Bible? Moses, the prince of Egypt, the man who could have been the Pharaoh, but he would have had to become a worshiper of 1 million different gods and spirits. Well, they were the people who built the pyramids. Look at these fast. Got so much I can show you. These are the temples of the dead. 480 feet high, made up of 2,300,000 giant blocks of limestone. How many? 2,300,000 blocks of limestone. 775 feet on each side, on a dead flat base, a skyscraper, a tomb. Because they believed the body had to be preserved to save the soul. But with Hatshepsut, there were no ceremonies. They threw a body out like it was a dead cat. And she's been just identified by a tooth. How were they built? Oh, they weren't built by little green men from outer space. We know how they were built. By thousands of men, dedicated men, not necessarily slaves, dragging the great stones. In the tomb of the two brothers, you've actually got a picture of a boat, and we may find it on the screen somewhere. You go into the tomb of the two brothers at Saqqara. Now there you got it. There you got a boat. And it's carrying one of the great big rocks, one of the big stones for building the pyramids. We have discovered the mud ramps, so they dragged them up. What a race they were. Tremendous, the pyramids. It was the home of the gods. It was the cosmic mountain. The Egyptians worshiped powerful spirit forces, many, many gods. They believed they were in contact with the dead. Now, Karnak Temple. That's the largest religious complex ever built, 1.5 miles square. I've been there many, many times. The priests of the New Kingdom who ran this temple were powerful. They owned 81,000 slaves, 421,000 cattle, 691 acres of land, 83 ships, 46 shipyards, 65 cities. And during the time of Ramesses the Great, they received gifts of 31 tons of gold, 997 tons of silver, 2,395 tons of copper. It wasn't long ago, I say this with courtesy, the skeptics were laughing at the Bible because when it spoke about the building of Solomon's temple and the great temples back there, they said, all this gold, there wasn't that much gold in the world. The Egyptians didn't have kilograms of gold or pounds of gold. They had hundreds of tons of gold. Let me take you into the hypostyle hall. That's a small part of this temple. Not a big part, just a little part. Going to take you into it. It's 58,000 square feet. Some of the columns are 75 feet high and 32 feet in circumference. Built by Sethi I and his son Ramesses or Ramoses the Great. You can even see the traces of the paint. It was once painted in these wonderful colors all the way through. Champollion, when he went into that temple, said it was conceived by men 100 feet tall. They're the people who gave us the Bible. That's civilization. Some folks today think, it's just a book written by peasants and simple people. They're the simple people. This is the civilization that gave us the Bible, that claims to have the answers. I want you to look at the glory. We don't have a lot of time. I want you to look at some of the glory. Come into King Tut's tomb. We're going to do this fast, because I've got more information to give than I could ever give tonight, but I'll be giving more tomorrow night. This is the entrance to the Valley of the Kings. But I want you to come straight into the tomb. I want you to come with us. I hired the Cairo Museum recently for a full evening with 40 guards, and we were able to go and take our television cameras in there. That was Nefertiti, most likely the mother. This is Akhenaten, most likely the father or the father-in-law of King Tut. But I want you to see some of this marvelous, wonderful craftsmanship. This was placed upon the face of the Pharaoh when Howard Carter discovered the king in 1922. As he opened up all of the coffins, he was buried within a bunch of coffins. And last of all, he came to the death mask. We had the privilege of going into the Cairo Museum and being with all of this by ourselves. Look at the coffins. Gold. The final coffin in which the king's frail, broken body was placed. He died of a leg injury. He got blood poison. Died when he was a young man. But the final coffin itself is made of not wood and gold. It is solid yellow gold, and it weighs a ton. The glory. The Bible indicates Moses could have had that glory. If he hadn't made the right decision, I would have met him in the Cairo Museum with the rest of the mummies and the rest of the pharaohs. Now the Bible tells the story that the children of Israel, led by Moses, escaped from the land of the pharaohs. And when I take my Bible and read it, I read about Hatzor. Now, I just hope we got some folks here tonight who don't believe this book, because I hope that after this lecture you will believe it, because we're dealing here with facts. At that time, Joshua turned back and captured Hatzor and put as king to the sword. They totally destroyed them, not sparing anything that breathed, and he burned up Hatzor itself. It says that when they left Ramses, the children of Israel, when they got over into Palestine, they destroyed the city of Hatzor. This is Hatzor. You say, how do you know? Well, it's a fact. That's the city of Hatzor. And I want you to see something else. In Hatzor, I actually put in my hands the ash from the fire. Look at this. This is the ash from the days of Joshua. When I was in Jericho, I went to the original wall that was overthrown by Joshua. There'd just been a storm. They don't get rain through there. But there had been a strange downpour of rain, and it had loosened up things. I found a human skull going back to these days. I believe. Why do I believe? I believe because I got to be honest. Because of the overwhelming evidence. There's prophecies about ancient Egypt. The Bible said, no more a prince of the land of Egypt. Ever since that prophecy, Egypt has never had a prince. Persians, Greeks, everybody else. Never an Egyptian prince. The prophecy came to pass. Even the prophecy about Pharaoh, Alexander the Great, he became a pharaoh. And the prophecy saying that he wouldn't have any children of his own, that his kingdom would be divided up among 4 generals, Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy, is written down in the prophecies of this book. So, I have seen the pharaohs that are mentioned in the Bible. I've compared the evidence. I've been in the tomb of the man who said, I won't let Israel go. I've personally examined with Dr. Huas. I personally examined the body of the woman and found Moses in the basket. Thus, I'm forced to believe. I'm forced to believe that this is true. If this book is true, then it's the best news you've heard all year, all your life. Because this book tells us there's a God who loves us, a God who made us, who cares for us, and that the future can be great. You don't have to worry about the stock exchange falling because somebody's in charge. We're not a planetary eczema. We didn't come here by blind chance. We are here for a purpose. Did you know this? There are prophecies about us, about our civilization, what the future holds. There are prophecies about planet Earth and the future of planet Earth. I want to say to you this: don't believe this tonight because you just want to believe it. Don't believe it because of blind faith. Don't believe it because you say, oh, that's good to believe. Believe it because it's the truth. I have seen. I didn't always believe. I believe because I've seen. And I say to you tonight, there is a God. The Bible is true. There's a God who loves you. He's got a plan and a purpose for you. And your future can be great. Therefore, believe in the God who believes in you. Now, I believe, and because I believe in God and that He loves us and He cares for us, I believe in prayer. And tonight I want to say a prayer for each one of you that God is going to bless you and see you through tough times, and that God is going to give you a great future, and He's going to help you to understand the great message of the prophecies of this book. This world is facing its greatest crisis. You and I had better be ready.